Good evening and welcome to the SCG wrapping up day one of the fifth test. And I'm delighted to say that by popular demand, here with me, Sam Ferris, producer Sam Ferris. Welcome to your home ground.
Izzy, thanks for having me. Yes, got the call up. Because I do the rostering, I called myself up. Everyone else is too busy, but excited to be here. My first test match day of the summer, and what a day it was.
I like to call it skipper's prerogative, and
Yes.
we'll get on to the skippers of the various teams in a moment.
Yeah.
Sam, what was your highlight of the day?
Lots of highlights, but my highlight is going to be the crowd behind us. 47,998, the biggest crowd of the SCG since 1976, and bigger than any AFL game here ever. So it is still the Sydney Cricket Ground. Sydney Swans AFL stay away. It's a cricket venue.
That's quite a coup, because that's all that I hear at the MCG is that they'll never surpass an AFL crowd because they've got to take away some of the seats for the sight screen and things. But they've managed to do it here.
No, it's just
good going,
cricket,
Sydney.
Test cricket alive and well.
Well, I mean, talking about highlights, I quite like the bit of controversy around. I think we should probably start there because, Sam, there was controversy almost everywhere you looked today.
Mm-hmm.
We ended on controversy.
We did.
With a bit of back chat from the young Sam Konstas. But it was the wickets, or the non-wickets. And we'll start then with the Virat Kohli first ball that he faced.
Yep.
And it looked as though he may have edged it to Steve Smith, who scooped it up. Question is whether it was before it hit the ground or not, to be caught then by Marnus Labuschagne in the gully. I guess hot take, was it out or not in your eyes?
Is it a hot take? Look, I'm going to say it was not out. I think they got that one right. Steve Smith diving low to his right. You summed it up perfectly. He scooped the ball up. My question is, and you can see in the replays, if the ground wasn't there, would the ball have come out? And I seem to think that the ground helped him scoop it up. And there was some part of the ground that touched the ball. Is it by the letter of the law out or not out? It's not out, I think. Is the law right? Is the rule right? I'm not so sure. I think there needs to be a little bit more, I don't know if it's common sense or grey area with catches. I think if the ball touches the ground, that's not always the case.
No, I think you're right. It is a grey area because when you look at Rule 33, which is the catching law, so to speak, it talks about having control of it. It talks about a fielder. Doesn't specify which fielder. So if you have a double one, but it doesn't necessarily talk about the ball touching the ground. It talks about the catching hand touching the ground.
Right.
And this is where it's been open for interpretation. And we've seen different outcomes of this. We saw a few years ago when Mitchell Starc caught the ball and then slid her on the ground.
Yes.
And the thing there was that his fingers were down, or the ball was down on the ground. And then we saw quite recently Cameron Green instead had something similar where the ball looked as though it touched the ground, but he had his fingers underneath it.
Yeah.
The difference here, which I found really interesting, was that this was the first time that we're seeing this whole interpretation being used, but it wasn't just one fielder. It was Steve Smith, and then into the hands of Marnus Labuschagne. So the question there, first of all, is that did Steve Smith, as the first catcher, so to speak, have to have control of it?
Yeah.
And then does the hitting the ground matter in terms of whether his fingers were underneath it or over the top of it?
Yeah.
To me, it could have been either way.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen, before the Women's Football World Cup that was held here in Australia a few years ago, they had this wonderful advert of the French football team. The men, it looked as though you were watching the men's football team.
Right.
And halfway through the advert, it showed that it was the women's football team.
Yeah.
And they used AI to do this. And the point of that is that I want to be able to get rid of the teams and the faces and show the dismissal. Yeah. And then you'd be able to, and then you'd have a vote on it. It's like a blind wine tasting test. Because of course, what happened today was that we had sort of the consensus fell along party lines. If you were Indian, it was certainly not out. If you were Australian, it was out. And I mean, the Triple M press box got pretty heated there.
Yeah. I don't know. I just felt the ball hit the ground, and if the ball touches the ground in that instance, I mean, you talk about bowling partnerships, batting partnerships. This was the first fielding partnership that we've probably seen in Test match cricket, and the parry to Marnus just felt like he scooped it. Steve Smith said, coming off the field at lunch, that 100% he caught it. It didn't touch the ground. So maybe we take Steve's word. I mean, if he says that it was fingers were under the ball, then he's the best judge of it. I don't know.
But then if we take Steve Smith's word for that one, Washington Sundar, a little bit later in the day, he was adamant that he did not hit one that was given out when it looked possibly as though it had been gloved through to the keeper. Snicko is not having a great time of it this series. And I would say there's a lot of background fuzziness on the snickometer. There was certainly a little spike as it passed the glove, but there'd been a few other spikes in and around. I mean, was that one out?
Yeah, well, I think that one was out.
Okay.
So Indian fans don't at me, but I think that one, we were watching it in the commentary box, and you could hear a sound on the stump mic, and Pat Cummins thought he heard a sound, so he sent it upstairs for a review. The Snicko showed a spike, a small spike as the ball was touching the glove, and then about 2 frames later, there was another sort of same level of spikiness on the snickometer, and I get the sense that that was his foot scraping back. The first one was the ball touching the glove, and the second one was his foot scraping back. Am I clutching at straws? I don't think so. That's my read on it. I could hear a sound, but I reckon almost with both cases, you could make an argument either way.
And that's exactly it, because I think I would fall down on the opposite side to you to this one.
Right.
So on the Virat Kohli one, I probably would have fallen down on out.
Yes.
And on the Washington Sundar, I think I would have erred on the side of caution and said not out. And that's where I'm quite happy in a way, because I kind of think with these things is that it all comes out in the wash.
Yeah.
And it goes back to our original point when we were seeing controversial dismissals earlier in the series, is that the technology is an aid.
Yes.
At the end of the day, it's up to a human being, who, by the way, is fallible, can make mistakes, but it's on the evidence that they see in front of them. There's all kind of shouts around it's a conspiracy, and if it hadn't been Virat Kohli and if it had been somebody else that would have been given out, I can assure you, as somebody who's worked in many public institutions and big bodies, that it is always cock-up rather than conspiracy.
Yeah, definitely.
So that's the first. I don't think there's any bias there.
No, I agree with you. I totally. And that was just, I don't know. It's bad luck. I mean, it was 1-1, so.
It is 1-1, so like even Stevens. And the only thing, the thing that I'd end on, because we talked about this a lot when we actually should be talking about actual cricket, is that I'd like to see a better explanation or a better communication from the third umpire, because it sounded so hurried and flustered.
Yeah.
But actually, if you were to explain why they've, how you apply the law and why they've fallen on that decision, then you could get rid of a whole lot of this rubbish chat that comes with it.
Yeah.
But having said that,
in some leagues, the TV commentary get to speak to the third umpire.
Yeah.
We had Paul Wilson on Willow Talk. We had Paul Wilson on Willow Talk late last year, and he said that in some of the leagues that he adjudicates, the TV commentary can phone in and say, explain that decision, and he can explain it, and then there's no grey area. So get in there and talk to Joel Wilson. Get him to explain some of those decisions.
Simon Tafel, a former, an Australian who's been a former umpire on the international circuit, has been used by the television, and I think he came down and said it could be either way, both of those. So there we go. We're all in agreement together.
We like controversy. It's good.
And I did say that we would go back to the cricket. But the last thing to add to our little controversial bubble, we'll square it away.
We're starting with Controversy Corner on today's show.
Well, we're here for the clicks. So. Sam Konstas. We know that he likes, he's enjoying the occasion, the limelight.
He is.
I heard a really nice take the other day, is that he is playing Test cricket the way that we would as normal human beings, and suddenly got called up to the Australian team. And he's doing everything that you would if you suddenly were like, oh my God.
It's like if a rubber lamp and a genie comes out and you have one wish, I want to play one Test match for Australia. He did that in Melbourne.
Right.
Yeah.
And he's kind of carrying it on. We had a bit of interaction with the crowd and the stretching. He likes standing by there and interacting and selfies, whatever. He came out to bat with Khawaja very late into the day. And it was evident that, Australian openers probably didn't want to bat too many overs, and India wanted to get through them. And there was a point in the final over, Bumrah was possibly thinking he'd get another over in.
Yes.
Khawaja stepped away for whatever reason it was, and there was a bit of a chat between Konstas and Bumrah. Bumrah, by the way, nicest man in cricket.
Nicest man in cricket.
Don't want to be booing him. Has Konstas run away with it a bit, or is this all part of? Is the part of the way he should play, or that we want him to play?
Look, I think he maybe is a little bit too big for his britches at the moment. I think he might need to settle down just a wee little bit, but he's 19 years old. Talking to Travis Head yesterday, and let him be 19. It's going to come back to him one way or another. So Khawaja's doing a bit of gardening, obviously trying to milk the time and make that the last over before stumps. And Boomer's gone, hey, face up. And I think Sam said, mate, you bowl when Khawaja's ready, maybe with a couple of expletives in there. I'm not quite sure. Something like was turned down for that, unfortunately. And then there was a bit of back and forth. And then that next ball, Khawaja gets dismissed by Boomer, and Boomer turns around straight away and gives Konstas an almighty stare. So it's great. I mean, it's great theatre. Cricket's entertainment. It's a sport to be entertaining. And there were 48,000 people here. Most of them stayed to that last ball, and it was a great finish to a great day of Test cricket. Pretty down. I mean, the pitch was pretty spicy. Not a lot of runs scored today. So, I don't think there's much in it. They might get another little reprimand from the match referee, but play on. That was all right.
Well, I mean, good. I mean, in a way, I think good on Konstas, but the last man that I want to be riling up.
You're not upsetting.
Is Jasprit Bumrah.
The irony is that before lunch, Shubman Gill was time wasting as well, and he was coming down the wicket, and Steve Smith's like, "Oi, this is bullshit. Face up." And Gill's gone back to him and said, "Hey, mate, we don't chirp you when you're trying to do this." And then Marnus at leg slip says, "Yes, you do." And then shortly after, Lyon gets him on the stroke of lunch. Smith gave him a bit of a send-off. So, yeah, it's really heated out there. It's great.
So, but this goes back to the two controversial moments, is that they all come out in the
wash. Yeah, that's right. It's 1-1.
And it's even Stevens, and that's the way we like it.
Yeah,
now, I've neglected the cricket, so I'll give you a quick wrap-up of the scores.
Yeah.
Australia 1 for 9 at stumps after that Khawaja dismissal. New captain, or a returning captain, Jasprit Bumrah, who was the captain in the first test because of the absence of Rohit Sharma. He won the toss, elected to bat on a spicy SCG. I think that's fair, spicy. Yeah. Australia's quicks, they batted and bruised quite literally, actually, India, from top to bottom and in between, bowled out for 185 late into the final session.
Yep.
Scott Boland, 4 for 31. I mean, they say that he's the MCG zone. He's got a pretty good record here at Sydney as well.
There's a lot of statues around us. There might be a Scotty Boland one. Maybe there's one at every ground.
Well, I think every time he goes on to bowl, someone calls for him to have a statue built. Mitch Stark, 3 for 49, and Bumrah got Khawaja that last ball of the day. Now, Rohit Sharma, who is the incumbent captain of India, the line was that he was, I guess, resting himself, or was having a rest.
Opted to rest? Was that it?
Why is this language being used?
I don't know.
He's had a torrid series so far.
Yeah.
Why can't anybody just spit it out and tell us that he's been dropped?
Yeah, he dragged himself. And you know what? The team is better for it because he was not doing the job at the top of the order. He was a statue at first slip in the field. And, the team looks better with KL Rahul opening the batting. But I feel sorry for him because he's been shifted around all series because of Rohit. If he had stayed opening the batting where he showed so much class and temperament in that first test, maybe the series looks a little bit different. But, opting to rest, probably not the best words to choose there. But, that's Indian cricket. They don't want to really offend people. It's an interesting...
But
we're not privy with it. We're talking a little bit out of school about what's actually going on there. But if it was an Australian or an England player or a captain, they would have been dropped. They're not resting from any test matches.
Yeah, but it's not. I mean, it's not just the Indian team that uses sort of euphemisms and doesn't quite spit it out, especially with injuries. Australia are not very good at actually telling us what's happening. Why? No. So my question to this is, why do teams do it? Or do we not have an answer for that?
I can't answer that.
I just don't see how it's a win for the management or even the relationship with the media. It's like, I would just respect it so much more if someone said to me, oh, by the way, Hazelwood has actually really injured himself, and that's why we've got this issue. Or Rohit Sharma, as we all know, has not been scoring runs, and that's why he's been dropped. And yet we don't seem to be able to have this. Anyway, that's just me going on a journalistic rant.
There should be more transparency with injuries for sure. Absolutely. But, and if he's been dropped, I mean, maybe they just said that because it's so obvious. I don't know. Is his test career done, is he?
I think it might well be, and we've speculated before. He might not be the only one at the end of this test series that we said. I wonder if we'll say goodbye to. I wonder if we'll have a little lap round with a vehicle of some sort.
I was speaking to an Indian journo yesterday, and the theory is that he's done from Test cricket. He'll see out the Champions Trophy, and that'll be him in international cricket because there's another ODI World Cups in 2027. Too old for that. He's already retired from T20s, And the next Test series for India is in England, and if he's having trouble with these pitches, he might really struggle in England. So maybe we've seen the last of Rohit Sharma in the whites.
Well, we'll find out in a few days' time.
He might opt to retire.
Doubt. Well, Bumrah, with his 22, he was the last man out. He scored, quite like this little stat, he had the highest individual score by an Indian Test captain this series. Which
that is a good stat.
Shows you the state of play when it comes to poor old Rohit's form. Anyway, I mean, we don't want to dwell on misfortune, so we'll move on then to Australia's bowlers.
Yeah.
Because while Rohit might have needed a rest, two bowlers who you think might have also deserved a rest, but have seemed to keep on coming in, steaming in at 142 3 clicks. Pat Cummins, Mitchell Starc, Scott Boland, that trio. I mean, how do they back up like this?
Just tough, seasoned cricketers. These guys have played a lot of cricket now, know their bodies well. You're talking about not really knowing the full extent of injuries. We still don't really know what's wrong with Mitch Starc at the moment. Sort of a rib issue or something like that.
But he's still banging it in.
I think it's the fastest he's bowled this series.
It's insane.
146. He was great. I mean, he bowled without luck in Melbourne, and he hasn't got a great record in fifth test nor at the SCG. So there was a school of thought that maybe you rest him, get the young Jai Richardson in. Again, resting and dropping are two different things, but Starc probably did deserve a rest and getting a fresh bowler in. But he bowled really well, got an early wicket, got Jaiswal again.
And well supported by
Sorry,
Bo
he didn't
Webster.
get Jaiswal, he got KL Rahul.
Well supported by Bo Webster, who
Bo,
he's not quite in the sort of the speed of the quicks we just mentioned, but
Taller,
he bowled. So Mitch Marsh, the most he ever bowled in one innings was 12 overs, and Webster's already contributed more than that. Didn't get a wicket.
No.
Ryan had a drop at Garley, unfortunate for Webster. Great in the slips. Consensus on his debut?
I thought it was great. Great. Mark Waugh presented him his cap. It was a stark difference what Bo Webster was offering to what Mitchell Marsh was offering. And I don't think Mitch Marsh was 100% fit.
Yeah.
That's pretty clear now. He stood the seam up. He got it to move in the air and off the pitch. This pitch, we've described it a few times as spicy. There were 30 times the batter was hit today.
I was going to go on to that before. We're going to move into the secret cricket club questions in a moment.
Okay.
But
Bo, great debut. I mean, didn't take a wicket, would have loved one. You can see he took two great catches at third slip in the game. He was pumped when there were wickets. I think we said yesterday with Travis said it's one great seaman replacing another great seaman. So the big test now for him will be on this wicket against Bumrah and co. So we'll see his first pass mark, and we'll see how it goes with the bat.
The pitch.
Yeah.
Are we going to see repercussions about this? Because there were so many. There was one awful statistic about the fact that I think Rishabh Pant, who sees the ball pretty well, normally speaking, he got hit almost, 10-15% of the time, every 8 balls or something.
8 times in the first 50 balls or
there
something like that.
There was one bruise on his forearm, which, I mean, that was the sort of the
that
bruising
was the previous
and the
one.
colour.
There was a really big one and there was a little one below.
And then it got hit him in the sort of, the more precarious region around the abdominals. Many euphemisms.
What are we calling it today?
Oh, it's many euphemisms we could go to. Some people might call it the nurries, I'm told, but
Washington Sundar got a bad one in the box. That was
absolutely, but it was being peppered around, and it was. So we talk about it being spicy. It was all sorts. But are we worried here about safety? Is going to be a reprimand about the state of the pitch? There's quite a lot of grass on it.
Let's see. Let's see. It might be day one. Let's see what happens. It might flatten out. Yeah, you want a bit. Cummins would have batted first as well.
Yeah.
But the pitch is green.
Okay.
It did go up and down and move a bit off the seam, but no. Well, let's wait to the end of the test to make that call.
All right, day one, spicy pitch.
Yeah.
But too early to tell. And at least it makes things interesting from our perspective.
Yes.
We'll move on then to the secret cricket club questions. And Gav asks, what's the opposing approaches to team announcements?
Here we go.
This is the way being dropped, which is what happened to Marsh, or opting out, rested, which happened to Sharma. Does it tell us anything about the respective team cultures?
I think it does, yeah. And again, I'm no expert on Indian cricket culture, but they respect their senior players immensely. We saw Sunny Gavaskar, people kissing his shoes, and even he was in the press box again today, and everyone swarmed him, and he's highly revered. So, yeah, I'm not sure. Maybe they're just trying to drop this. Maybe considered a severe word in Indian cricket culture. I'm not sure, but he's been axed. He's been dropped. So
I don't know. I reckon both teams are as bad as each other with obfuscating the actual truth.
I don't know.
Cloaks and daggers in my eyes. Just say it straight as it is.
Okay.
Daniel, he asks, if he's fit, does Hazelwood come straight back in for Boland in Sri Lanka? Now, Boland,
I like this question.
His average this series is, I mean, it's almost a Bumrah levels, which is ridiculous.
Yeah. We had lots of questions about this. Secret Cricket Club members big on Scotty Boland. Maybe we've got strong
Victorian. So you've
Victorian.
got all the insight to all the questions coming through.
Yeah, strong Victorian contingent in the Secret Cricket Club, perhaps. Does he come straight back in? Well, Cummins unlikely to tour, right? So that means we've got one fast bowling spot open up. So maybe they all play. Maybe it's Stark, Boland and Hazelwood. Do they play two spinners? We've just seen that Matt Kuhneman, Todd Murphy and Pete Hanscom have been added to this test squad as peripheral players. They're just going to train on, a bit of a catch-up to see how they're going. But that's a pretty strong indication that they're going to go to Sri Lanka. So they'll more than likely play two spinners there. You think Stark, if fit, will definitely play. Then it is out of Hazelwood and Boland, and maybe they get a test each.
But also, the other thing, they've got Webster, who could not only crack them down at 120, 30 clicks, but he's got a cheeky off-spin on there as well.
That's true. That's a very good point. Yeah.
What a luxury. What a
Three
luxury.
spinners.
So, all to play for. Watermo, he asks, why would they play Stark when he's so close or even currently holding an injury? We should be blooding in some young bowlers. Well, I kind of want to say QED. I mean, look what he's doing. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and the thing is, you never drop champion players when they're in the form they are, like Mitchell Stark is. So I think Starkey would never have put the team in jeopardy. If he was good to go, he's going to play. He wants to get to 100 tests, which means he pretty much has to play every test now until the Ashes to get there midway through that series. So, he would know. The medical staff are pretty good. And the thing with the Hazelwood one, saying that he was injured, he had a side, but he did a calf, so they're not quite related. I think it was just bad luck. But if they're fit, pick him. Stark's good to go. He's bowling it up there. He's got the wickets. Yeah. Pick him. And every day of the week is my vote. Yeah. Cam asked, this is an interesting one, because India won the toss, decided to bat. Yeah. Pat Cummins said that at the toss that he would have done the same had he won it. Yeah. But Cam wants to know, are the Aussies that far inside India's head for them to bat on a pitch as green as the outfield? Good question. I don't think they're that inside the head of India's batters. I think, you just bat first the SCG, hope it breaks up late in the day. But, and the thing is that their batting has been weak. So if they're in their head, they would have bowled first. And then from what I understand, the grass was the same amount that was left on the MCG pitch, and that ended up being a cracking pitch. So I think it was a deceptive pitch from the optics, certainly. But both teams would have batted. I think I'll take Pat Cummins at his word. But a nice try. Yeah. Get inside the head. As the 747 flies over top. Matt asks, how many times will we hear snug across the rest of the test? Bo Webster. Slug from Snug, little town south of Hobart. I think you're going to hear a lot more. I would say at least 6 times on each TV commentary channel, and then probably maybe half a dozen each from the radio station. So you're going to hear a lot from it. Everyone, Snug is on the map now. We know where Snug is. You Aussies do love an obscure nickname, so there you go. And Slug, final one then. Final one, and especially as you're modelling. Yes. Wonderful cap. I mean, my hair would get in the way with same with me. My locks. So Marcus asks, are there any truckers left? Great question. He'll be at the SCG tomorrow. So if you're watching this, listening to this, get somewhere near the members stand. Hads has got plenty of Willow Talk trucker hats to hand out. If you show that you're a Willow Talk follower on Apple, listener, Spotify, on our Instagram or TikTok pages, might get you a little bit ahead of the queue. So if you can get to the SCG tomorrow, Santa Claus, aka Brad Hannon, will be giving out the best Christmas gift there is this summer. So get them while they last. Well, there you have it. All the important questions answered. Yep. That's us for today. Day 1 at the SCG, the 5th and final test of the border-gavaskar trophy. I'm Izzy Westbury. Sam Ferris, thank you very much, and see you tomorrow. Keep it real. Yeah, thanks for watching the Willow Talk podcast on YouTube. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you don't have to miss an episode wherever you are. And while you're at it, check out these videos up here. They're mostly good.